Let me share a story and bring this home in a hopefully concise fashion. Imagine you went to a country, a faraway country, and you met some people there who actually did magic in front of you. Made things disappear, floated in air, told you things nobody could possibly know. Said, do you believe in magic now? No? All right, they give you a few more. And then finally you say, okay, fine, you can do magic. He said, now, before you go, I got something to sell you. It's a sword. This will cut through any door in the world. Any shield, anything it'll cut through. It's powerful. And they show you, it starts cutting metal, titanium, wood, whatever. All right, so you take out your book and you sign the check and you give it to him and you got the sword. And on your way out, you heard him talking to somebody else. You want to buy a shield that can't be cut? You stop with your sword and your receipt and you go back. Excuse me? Are you selling that guy a shield that can't be cut? Yes. That's illogical. If this sword can cut through anything, then that shield can't exist. If that shield can stop anything, then the sword can't exist. Illogical things cannot exist in the same universe. Matter of fact, there's a word for that. It's called nonsense. This argument, although it's powerful and very, very prominent, is nonsense. The paradox of omnipotence. There's a bunch of them that are more prominent and more scholarly about omniscience and omnibenevolence, but I won't go there for now. The other one is called the problem of evil. The problem of evil. This is the most terrible and most difficult one to even address, and I'm going to just barely touch on it because of the interest of time. If there is any good reason to not believe in God, or a reason that's powerful enough to shake you, it would be evil. Losing a child or losing a loved one for horrific purposes, drive-bys or some rape or horrible things like a tsunami, makes people really doubt the beneficence of somebody running the show. But the problem of evil, although it's a problem, is not only a problem for the theist and the believer, it's also a problem for the atheist. Because if there are really evil things in the world, then by default there are good things. If there are really good things in the world, then there's a moral law that makes things good and evil. And that moral law can't exist unless there's a moral lawgiver. And Rabbi Zacharias talked about that in some of his work, and some of the great scholars like Immanuel Kant discussed the issue in more detail. Jean-Paul Sartre wrote the following: "It is distressing that God does not exist." Remember Jean-Paul Sartre from earlier? He said, "All possibility of finding values in the heaven of ideas disappear along with God." Friedrich Nietzsche wrote, "Although there are no moral facts, indeed, there is no morality. Only truth can exist if God is the truth, and it stands and falls with God. And since there is no God, there is no truth, there is no meaning, there is no morality, absolutely speaking." Bertrand Russell rejected all moral realism and retained the view that humanity and all its achievements will come to nothing one day. And he said the following: "The outcome of an accidental correlation of atoms is what we are. We must safely build our lives on a firm foundation of unyielding despair." If there is no absolute evil, then it's not evil for your child to die or your son to get killed, your daughter raped, your country destroyed, you to get an F that you didn't deserve. These things are just sociological manipulations of people who are using the processes, absolutely speaking. But to be fair to the atheists, most atheists who are well-read will not say, "I don't believe in evil." No, they'll say, "I don't believe in absolute evil or objective evil." There's evil, just sociologically manipulated. There's no absolute one. But that seems to be a play on words, but we'll get into that as we go. Alvin Plantinga, one of the greatest scholars on the problem of evil, in his book God, Freedom, and Evil, which I strongly recommend to you, wrote the following. Let me pretext this. Why can't God create a world of free creatures who are only good, who never do evil? Why can't he? He's all powerful, right? Again, it goes back to the omniscience part of the issue. Listen to what he said. "A world containing creatures who are significantly free and freely perform more good than evil is more valuable than all else being equal, than a world containing no free creatures at all." Let me repeat that. A world containing significantly free creatures is more valuable, all else being equal, than a world containing no free creatures at all. Now, God can create free creatures, but he can't cause them to determine to do what is right. If he does, then they aren't free. They do not do what is rightly free. So creating a non-free creature is just a contradiction in terms. It goes against the very nature of God and the foundation of the universe. So God created the world in such a way it's the best of all possible worlds, some argue, although I think it's just the world that God wants to be to maximize his own glory at the end of the day. Samuel Harris, in his book, The Moral Landscape, writes, questions about value and meaning and morality and life's later purpose are really questions about the well-being of conscious creatures. Values therefore translate into facts that can be scientifically understood. And what Harris does, and a few other philosophers in his rig, argue that you can try to find good and evil by just analyzing the scientific background of our nature, and from there get it. It's very difficult to do that, because you're doing something called getting an ought from an is. It's like saying, this is the way things are, therefore this is the way things should be. It's very difficult to get that, and most philosophers will call that problematic, to say the least. For example, Cal Nielsen, an atheist philosopher, writes at the end of his book the following: we have not been able to show that reason requires a moral point of view, or that all really rational persons, unhoodwinked by myth or ideology, need to be individual egoists or classical amoralists. Reason doesn't decide here. The picture I have painted for you is not a pleasant one. Reflection on it depresses me. Pure, practical reason, even with good knowledge of the facts, will not get you to true morality. You see, atheists disagree about the ground of morality as much as theists disagree about what's moral. But again, there's no great atheist in the sky to determine which atheist is right. There isn't one, according to their position, of course. And ladies and gentlemen, morality, reason, if it's not rooted in a rich theistic moral soil, will produce the fruit of poison. Reason, when not grounded in a rich theistic moral soil, will produce the fruits of poison. And what I mean by that is the same reasoning ability that brings me the ability to power an entire city, the same reasoning ability can bring another to destroy it or nuke it. The same reasoning ability that lets me love my woman would be the same type of reasoning ability that would try to justify somebody else to rape that person. It's reason. Reason is not moral, it's amoral. It's an entity we can use. It's like a knife. You can use it to cut a watermelon or somebody's throat. It's a neutral position. You need a rich moral soil to go forward on that. Evil is very difficult to deal with. How do you deal with it? How does an atheist comfort somebody who lost their loved one or who's just been diagnosed with a terminal illness? On theism, there is this belief that there is hope, that there's a reason, that there's a hand that guides the fate. On atheism, there isn't.